My name is Stefan Brancel. I am 24. I'm a first-year medical student at Indiana University, and I've been juggling for 16 years. In that time, I've been teaching for about a little bit under 10, and I've won a lot of numbers gold medals in passing. I've won 2 IJA teams championships, one with a large group of 15 people and one with one other person, Ben Hessness. Those were 2009 and 2011 IJA. It was fun. I competed in juniors 3 times and succeeded in my goal of, well, I like to think that I succeeded in my goal of showing everybody in the audience something they had never seen before and losing very handily in the process. I juggle completely as a hobby. I don't like performing that much. I find that I get very nervous, and it means that I have a very difficult time doing things that I otherwise know that I could do.
Right.
So I generally only perform when it's specifically requested or I have to. That said, I've performed a fair amount, and also have done emceeing and things like that I typically combine with juggling. Now I generally practice, varies a little bit, but 2 to 4 hours each week, and it's very broken up just because of my schedule. When I was competing, I was practicing 15 and 40 hours each week, and not all of that time was dedicated practice towards my routines or my specific skills. A lot of it was teaching as well. There are a couple of different warm-up routines that I'll do depending on what I'm looking to get out of the day. First thing that I'll typically do is I will just sort of play with the clubs. I might sort of do something like this. And this only started after I had been juggling for a long time. It's just to get my hands warmed up to catching things, and doesn't serve as a proper technical warm-up.
Yep.
Typically, I will warm up, so I'll do that sort of as a more general physical warm-up. And then I might jump into some more numbers, again, not expecting to do well, but just warming up, getting ready to juggle. Once I actually decide to work on something, I will do a few runs of the thing itself. I will try the trick a couple of times, and I will try and isolate where the problem is. In that last case, I was throwing too wide.
Right.
That means that I need to either concentrate, so the next time that I try the trick, I will concentrate on bringing them back in. I'll find a new problem.
Right.
And depending on how severe the problem, I can typically either focus on correcting it within the pattern the next time around, or if it's a very severe problem, I will break it down to the individual throw, which can look like doing just the individual throw in a pattern, or even down to one club and that throw.
Right.
A good example would be something like that throw. In a pattern, I can sometimes get it to work.
Right.
But the throw itself requires a lot of individual practice. There are other throws that can't be practiced properly outside of a pattern. For instance, that pattern is a pattern.
Right. It just
and as such, doing this is necessary. You have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot that you can gain in terms of the entire pattern from just that throw.
Right.
So it definitely depends on what I want to work on. It tends to be very specific for the trick. I have, again, I mentioned I've been teaching for 10 years, a wide variety of both youth and more adult, and each trick will have its own special thing to warm up. It'll involve either an isolated component of that trick, it'll involve similar tricks with fewer clubs or fewer items, or it will involve a single club doing a component of that trick. And again, it'll build up. So if I'm teaching somebody how to do 3 clubs, something fairly simple, that begins with a club, it comes to here. Now there are a wide variety of ways for even an individual to learn 3 clubs. And what that ends up meaning is that I do try and cater the teaching to an individual. If you don't have a direct teacher, this becomes more difficult and you have to try and figure out what works for yourself. Almost everyone will have to break it down to fundamentals and learn to rotate their hand upwards, to pull their elbows just a little bit out and to bring it through the middle so that they're not hitting their wrist like that, and they're also not pointing their hand down and have no capability to throw it higher. I often find that explaining particular elements of technique to people can be very helpful. Club technique breaks down to a couple of things. There's an arm motion like this, there's a wrist motion like this. The combination of those two things determines how high the club goes and how much it flips. From there, we can learn how to fix things. A club like this has not enough flip, which means I need more wrist motion. A club like that is satisfactory. A club like this has too much wrist motion, so I need to correct it, which means that the biggest component to learning, I think, is figuring out what went wrong so that you can fix it. And again, either fixing it in the pattern or, if it's major, you break it down. Fewer clubs, maybe one prop it may come down to. If you're trying to put something in a show, my standard is something that I derive from a mentor of mine, actually. His name's Billy Watson. But if you can't get a trick 9 out of 10 times, it's not ready to be in your show.
Yeah.
Now, if you can't get it 4 out of 5 times cold, it's probably also not ready to be in your show. But the important thing is also, if you really want to have a clean routine and you have multiple tricks in that routine, a 9 out of 10 chance on that routine when warmed up, if you have 10 tricks, you're going to drop 1. Depending on a routine, one of my juniors' routines had 75 different 3-club tricks in it. If I hit 9 out of 10, I still have at least 7 drops on those 75 tricks, which is a lot of drops in a routine.
Yeah.
And so, again, depending on the level of perfection you're looking for, you can bump that up. Throughout a routine, different tricks have different importances. If it's your finale, 4 out of 5 times cold is not good enough. Because if you drop on your finale, that's a problem, particularly if it's a music cue. So for something like a finale, I would say it'd be 19 out of 20 times, and that's cold. So I just pick up my props. I haven't done any juggling today, and I need to try that trick. So, maybe that trick is a scissors catch. 1. I got another 19 times, and I can tell you, scissors catch is an easy trick for me, but hitting it 19 times out of 20 still requires practice on that particular trick, whether or not I think I can do it. It varies a little bit depending on the routine that I'm building. Spoken versus music is a little bit different.
Sure.
How well you want it to flow to the music, or if you're just planning on having background music, is also a little bit different, but I typically compose routines almost exclusively from sequences. And in a routine that I want to be better or more advanced, I might compose a sequence 1 throw at a time, wanting every throw to be precise. After this throw, I don't know what I'm doing next. And so I will continue to do, for me, building that sequence, I will continue to do the same sequence until I figure out what I want to put there.
Right.
I'm beginning to think it might be a back cross. So I'll try a back cross. I've decided I don't like the feel of back cross. I need to find something else. And so something like that little sequence, it's maybe 3 seconds, maybe 5. And so building a routine to that level is a really, really time-intensive thing. And so most people will string together tricks or sequences that are not completely connected. As I'm doing flats here, they look like practically nothing.
Yeah.
Also, if I'm only doing flats, there's no juxtaposition. So instead, I might do flats, I might do doubles, or doubles to triples, which is one of the more common uses of them. And then we can get into composing a routine of movement and everything else. There are a couple of decisions to be made in any particular practice. The way to get best fastest is not typically the most fun way to do it. However, if you go about it by having fun, you can still get good.
You're right.
And so there's a little bit of decision in that, in everything that you do. The way to get best fastest is to break things down until you have every single component good and build. That's really, really painful for most people. And so when you're building precision, and one of the things that I typically do is I practice with fun in mind, in the idea that I will get better. And then when I find that I'm stuck, I break down to proper technique and I do what I just showed, which is a pyramid, is what we call it. And you build controlled. You might do 10 runs of something you can do well. Yeah. Meaning, if I'm doing, what's a good example? We'd say this pattern. I might do 10 runs of 1 round of this sequence, right? And then I might say, next I'm going to go for 2 rounds. I'm going to do that 5 times. Eventually I get to the point where I'll say, okay, I'm just going to go for it as long as I can do it. Right? With in mind that I'm building up. And again, I typically personally, I do that when I get stuck. When I'm working on something and I don't feel like I'm improving anymore, I say, okay, if I really want to get this, I'm going to have to do it right. And I break it down. However, at the same time, I do find that when I can't fix a trick, if I leave it and then come back to it, sometimes I get a fresh look, sometimes things do work out. So I typically say, don't work on things past being frustrated. If you just keep working through frustration, you may get it, but you will also likely hate it. And it's a great way to feel like you want to quit something, despite getting better. Which is my theory of most things, that it should be fun to some extent. So I make a point, I show up at the Purdue Juggling Club once a week, and I spend about an hour and a half trying to make sure that everybody there learns something new. And then I spend about 15 minutes juggling by myself. And this is my primary dedicated juggling time, especially with clubs. And I found that I have gotten a little bit worse at things. And that's something that I have to recognize. And it's something that I recognize as I'm not practicing nearly as much as I used to. I'm certainly not going to get better. I would say that I haven't gotten significantly better in approximately 8 years. Now, this is because everybody who learns something has some sort of a learning curve. Now, on that learning curve, there is eventually a plateau, which you will reach when your natural ability level, combined with the amount of time that you're putting in, is equal to the difficulty of what you're doing. And that's something that everybody reaches. Once you reach that plateau, then you have to decide, is it worth more work to get purely better? Or do I branch out and do I learn other different things, different parts? Creativity is an important point because one of the things that I love about juggling is that you can make things. Yeah. Some people say it's an art, some people say it's a sport. Say whatever you want. It is my artistic outlet. I can't sing, can't draw, can't dance, but I can make things in juggling. As far as I know, I have never seen anybody else do this trick. Oh boy. And it's something that I thought, oh hey, I could do this, and then I tried it until I could get it.
Thanks for being here.
Of course.
My name is Mick Lunzer. I'm a professional juggler. I work with a comedy juggling knife throwing team called the Danger Committee. And I've been doing Diablos for just about 30 years. And it's one of my favorite juggling props. So it's kind of like a giant yo-yo that's not attached to the string. You know,